Hey guys, welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be sort of talking through a theory that's been in my mind lately about when you should buy palettes and when you should buy singles, and why I think that buying single shadows is really being underrepresented in the beauty community. I started thinking about this when I was looking at new palette releases, and I think it was looking at the swatches of the Urban Decay Naked Cherry palette, and I looked and thought, yeah, there's nothing there that I want. And I thought, well, yeah, I mean, I have a lot of palettes between the ones that I've received in subscription boxes and, you know, a few that I've bought on my own. There are a lot of colors that start to become duplicates in there. And it really feels lately like all we see are palettes. Singles are not a thing. And when I first started watching beauty reviews on YouTube, I felt like, you know, having magnetic palettes and having singles and depotting and that sort of thing was all very hyped up. And now the pendulum has incredibly swung towards palettes. And I think there are different times when palettes are good, but a lot of us now should be buying singles. So the idea of this also came from how we tend to dissect the value of palettes. So let's just say that I am somebody who does not own very much eyeshadow at all. I may be very new to makeup and I'm buying my first eyeshadow palette ever, and I don't really own any eyeshadows. And I decide to go out and buy the Modern Renaissance palette. Well, I think this ends up costing like $60 or something like that in Canada. And you look at this and it's like, I have all of these different shades, and I did not have any of these different shades before. And I think you get 14 shades in here. So really, you know, oftentimes you're justifying this to yourself in your head, like, okay, it was $60, which is a lot, but how many shades do I get? And then the math on that is $60 divided by 14 shades, you're paying a little over $4.20 per color. And that is less than buying a lot of singles. So this ends up being a really good deal. So that is wonderful. It's a good deal. You know, your first palette you've ever bought, that's wonderful. You then decide to go and buy another palette. And I'm just going to grab one from beside me here. Let's say you go out and get the Pure Soiree Diaries. So this is a great neutral palette. And you look at this and it's like, okay, in this one I get 12 shades, and I think this was even a little less expensive. Like I think that was maybe $35 or $40 Canadian. But then you start comparing it and going, how many actual new shades am I getting between these? You know, Tempera over here is very close to Private Party on this side. You know, there's a dark brown Citrus Umber here, and there's Epic over here. And, you know, that's not too bad of a crossover, but then it's not really like you're paying for 12 shades here. It's kind of more like you're paying for 10, because there were 2 shades in here that you didn't really need. They're already in this palette. You then decide to get a ColourPop palette, and this has a lot of really neat colors in it. I mean, these yellows and golds and bright colors that all really are calling out to you in the palette. And again, this one's inexpensive and you're getting 12 shades in here. But if you actually took the time to look back against the Modern Renaissance palette, you know, there's that light color in there, Tempera, it's kind of a dupe. There's even the orange shade, Relgar over here, is very close to this orange shade here, or actually even more so to this sort of burnt orange shade. And then, you know, you've got this sort of very light brown here, but over here you've also kind of got some brown shades, and you've definitely got some dupes of those in your neutral palette. So then you start looking at this and going, maybe like 9 of the shades in here I'm actually excited about. But the more and more and more of these you build up having, the more you're looking at a palette and it's really the pop of color that is actually of interest to you in there. Because all the neutrals, all the colors, all the warm tone things that we're seeing a ton of lately, you know, you've got it in other palettes. This also came to mind when I opened up our BoxyCharm palette and got this Nightingale palette from Pretty Vulgar. And I'm still planning on doing a review of this, but I opened it up and looked at it and thought, would I buy this? Well, I wouldn't, no matter how good these shades are, because, I mean, maybe I don't have a shade like this blue, but I probably do somewhere if I looked. And I think everything else here I have already. So instead of this being, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 shades that maybe cost $50 for this palette, it's almost like I'm paying $50 for the one shade that I don't already have in another palette. The more duplicates of shades you get between palettes, the more each palette is only adding 2 to 3 to 4 unique shades to your collection. So instead of looking at a palette and saying, oh, this is $40 and I'm getting 12 shades, so it's a great deal because it's like I'm only paying $3.33 per shade. You should look at this and go, how many unique shades are in here that you really want? For me, maybe one. It's not worth $40 for one eyeshadow. It's not. So I feel like when you're first starting out your eyeshadow collection, and I don't even like saying that, you don't need a collection. You should just have what you need to feel good and be creative. So instead of a collection, maybe just a selection of eyeshadows that are right for you. But when you're starting out, everything is unique, and getting a few really good palettes is going to be a really good deal and a efficient and bargain way of getting lots of shades. When you get to the point that I'm at where I have a lot of eyeshadow already, why am I not buying singles? Why are YouTubers not talking about buying singles? We should be going and looking at MAC, at Makeup Geek, at ColourPop, at I think NARS has some new singles they've put out, at Anastasia Beverly Hills in their singles. I mean, even if those singles are $9 or $12, I think the MAC ones here in Canada are $9. The Anastasia ones might be $12 to $15. If you look at a palette and there's only one color that really stands out for you, buying that single for $12 is still a better deal than buying a whole palette that you're not going to use other than that one color for $35 or $50, or in the case of the new Urban Decay Naked Cherry palette, $66. There are still a few YouTubers out there who really sort of have collections of singles. And I think Thrifty Beauty does it with her Coastal Scent singles. And I've seen a number of people mention that YouTube tutorials are really how they used to be, because it used to be like, take a burgundy shade, take a burgundy matte and do X. And now it's like, take the Urban Decay Naked Cherry palette and use specifically this shade to do this. And it leads us into thinking that we need to own that particular palette to make those particular looks. When in reality, I mean, the tiny variations between a dark brown in a, Nightingale palette versus a dark brown in a Modern Renaissance palette is not going to be anything that anybody notices in your eye look. So these things should be interchangeable. I mean, yes, there's always going to be whether a formula is good or not, but if you're getting a good formula and you can buy a single that gives you that fun shade, that pop of color that you want, then that's probably a better deal for you. A couple of other things that I hear people mention. One is that, oh, well, I like to have everything all in one palette to travel with, or I like it when everything's all in one spot, which feels a little lazy to me. Like, if you can take a neutral palette and then take a magnetic palette with a number of pops of color, is that really that much more difficult than having all of it in one palette? And the other thing is, if you do depan or, start to buy singles instead of buying all these palettes, you have infinite options of, when you travel, putting together the specific palette that you want so that you can travel with it and have exactly, what you would like that is customized to you. The more I started thinking about this, the more I am surprised that we just don't see it that often in the YouTube space. And I think that maybe a little bit because we've moved from tutorials being the main focus to product reviews. And I say this as somebody who just does product reviews because I'm not a makeup artist or anything like that, but it feels like things are very product focused rather than sort of color focused. One more point that I'll make is I've seen a number of reviews as well judging the value of a palette, an eyeshadow palette, by the grams of product. I just don't buy this. I mean, unless you are somebody who is panning every pan, it's more likely you're looking at what different new colors do I get, rather than what is the actual weight of all this eyeshadow, because you're really unlikely to use it all up. And if you do find that you use up one shade from that entire palette, then go out and buy the single of that shade or a very close dupe for it. I know this has been a little bit rambling, mostly because I'm just trying to sort this idea out in my head. But one of the things that I've been learning about lately is the marginal cost of things. So what is the cost to add one more unique shade to my collection? Well, does the cost have to be for an entire palette because I want that one unique shade in there? It would seem to make a lot more sense that the cost be, what does it cost to buy a single? And even if it's, you know, $12 for a single versus, you know, $20 for ColourPop, but if there's only one unique color in here, the value judgment shouldn't be how many colors you get, it should be how many unique colors you get. So I'm gonna stop there and I'm gonna ask you guys what you think of this. Have you thought about just moving towards singles, getting some magnetic palettes and going there? If you are somebody who has a lot of eyeshadow palettes already, do you find that you're not getting that excited looking at eyeshadow palette releases because you look and go, yep, I have 75% of the colors in there and only a couple of them are of interest to me? I would love to hear what you guys think. Please leave all of that in the comments. I do try to respond to every comment that I get. Please consider liking and subscribing and bell notification, everything else to this video. It's not often I just sort of sit down and ramble through some thoughts, but I thought it seemed like a good kind of day for that. And yeah, I hope this has been somewhat thought-provoking for you. Have a great day and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.